The wind screamed through the mountain forest like something hunting. Snow fell in blinding sheets, erasing paths, erasing hope, erasing the world itself. Deep in the wilderness, where no roads led and no maps marked, a figure lay crumpled in a drift. White dress against white snow, nearly invisible except for the spreading dark stain beneath her. Blood on snow. A bride discarded like refuse. Elena Maria Garrett floats somewhere between waking and not waking, between living and the thing that comes after. The cold has stopped feeling like cold. It feels almost warm now, a gentle embrace that whispers of sleep and rest, and an end to pain. She knows what this means. Her mother told her once back when winter first came to Montana and they were still learning this brutal new world. When the cold stops hurting, death is already reaching for you. Her face throbs with a dull, distant ache. One eye has swollen completely shut. The other opens to slits, sees only white. White sky, white ground, white everywhere. Her lips have cracked open, blood freezing to her chin. Each breath scrapes through broken ribs. 3, maybe 4. She lost count after Thomas's boot connected the second time. Pain screams from her left shoulder, a wrongness so profound her body refuses to process it. Dislocated. The word surfaces through the fog. Dislocated shoulder. The wedding dress clings to her skin, soaked through, freezing solid. Cream silk that her mother saved for years to buy. Lace that crossed an ocean in her grandmother's trunk. Now torn. Bloodied. A burial shroud she never asked for. No coat. No shoes. They took everything that might help her survive. Her fingers lie motionless in the snow. She cannot feel them anymore. Her toes have gone silent. These are the extremities that die first, she knows. The body sacrificing its edges to protect the core. But the core is failing too. Her heartbeat has slowed to something sluggish and thick. Her thoughts drift like snow, settling and melting and reforming into shapes that make no sense. Memory flickers. Thomas smiling during the vows. How did she not see the coldness behind those eyes? How did she mistake calculation for kindness? His mother watching from the front pew, that approving nod. Not a mother welcoming a daughter, but a hunter satisfied with a successful trap. Wedding guests applauding. Did any of them know? Did they suspect? Or were they simply relieved it was her and not them? Relieved to witness a happy moment in a hard world? Blind to the rot beneath the ceremony? The memory shifts, lurches forward later, hours later. Their bedroom. Thomas's smile vanishing like smoke. His fist connecting with her face before she could even speak. The explosion of pain. His mother's voice from the doorway, cold and clear. Make it look like she fell. The cold will finish it. More fists, his. Others. Hired men, strangers with empty eyes who did what they were paid to do. The wagon ride, her body jolting with each rut in the frozen road. Pain so vast, it swallowed everything else. Then stopping. Hands dragging her into snow. Thomas's face above her, his final words. Freeze, you stupid girl. Should have known better than to think anyone wanted you for yourself. Elena stopped struggling miles ago. Hours ago. Time has lost meaning. She let go of the rage first, then the fear. Then finally, the desperate, clawing need to survive. What is there to survive for? The marriage was a lie. The love was a weapon. She has no family, her parents dead and buried in ground they never owned. No friends close enough to ask questions. Thomas researched her carefully. Chose someone isolated. Someone whose death would raise no alarms. She will die as Elena Garrett, though she never truly earned the name. Die with a married name given by a man who never intended to honor it. There are worse ways to die, she thinks dimly. At least it is quiet here. At least the mountain does not pretend to be something it is not. The cold is honest. It does not smile while it kills. Snow covers her slowly, gently, like a mother tucking a child into bed. A burial without ceremony, without witness. She closes her working eye, surrenders to the white and the silence and the numbness creeping through her chest. Her last thought is small and distant. At least I will not die alone in some room, waiting for him to finish what he started. At least the mountain is beautiful. Then, sound breaks the white silence. Footsteps, heavy, crunching through deep snow, coming closer. Elena cannot open her eye, cannot move, cannot even feel fear anymore. She floats in the space between heartbeats, waiting for whatever comes next. Wolf, perhaps, bear, or Thomas returning to make certain she is truly dead. It does not matter. She has nothing left to fight with. The footsteps stop. A shadow falls over her, blocking the gray sky, blocking the falling snow. A voice, deep as an avalanche, rough as stone, speaks a single word. Christ! Elena's consciousness flickers like a candle in wind. The footsteps stop. She exists in the space between heartbeats, between breaths, between living and whatever comes after. Then, shadow falls over her, massive, blocking the wind, blocking the gray sky, blocking everything. She forces her working eye open. Vision blurs. Tears freeze to her lashes. She sees only an enormous shape, man or bear. Her mind cannot process through the cold and pain. The shape moves, shifts, too deliberate for animal. Man, then. Another man. Her heart tries to quicken but cannot find the strength. A voice rumbles above her, deep as an avalanche, but somehow controlled. Christ. Pause. Who? The word cuts off sharp. The shape kneels. Snow crunches under immense weight. Terror spikes weakly through Elena's numbness. More men, more violence. Thomas returning to finish what he started. But her body will not obey her commands. She tries to move, tries to pull away. Broken ribs scream. A sound escapes her throat, small and animal. Easy. The voice drops lower, gentler. Easy now. Hands touch her throat. Huge hands. Rough with calluses and cold and the texture of a life lived outdoors. But the touch itself, impossibly gentle. Fingers find her pulse, press carefully. She can feel the restraint in them, the deliberate softness as though he knows his own strength and fears it. You're alive. He sounds surprised, almost disbelieving. Barely. How long have you been out here? Elena's jaw will not work. Cold has locked it tight. Swelling has sealed her mouth nearly shut. She tries to speak. Nothing comes. She tries to pull away from his touch. Stranger, isolated wilderness, already betrayed by a husband's hands, but her body betrays her. She cannot move, cannot fight, cannot protect herself. He sees the wedding dress, blood-soaked, torn. Then her face, swollen, bruised, destroyed. His jaw clenches. The sound of his teeth grinding together reaches her through the wind. Rage, pure and controlled and burning beneath the surface like magma beneath stone. Who did this? Not a question expecting answer. A statement of fury held in check by will alone. Elena watches his face. Weathered. Older than she first thought, late 30s perhaps, maybe 40. Beard covered in snow, white against darker blonde. Gray eyes fierce with something between horror and determination. Norwegian features, strong nose, jaw carved from granite. He makes a decision. She can see it happen. Something settling behind his eyes. You'll die if you stay here. Minutes, not hours. His voice remains steady, matter of fact. I'm taking you to my cabin. Going to lift you now. It will hurt. I'm sorry. Elena wants to protest. Strange man. Isolated wilderness. She knows what men do. Thomas taught her. But the cold has stolen her voice, stolen her strength. Stolen everything except the animal knowledge that she will die if she stays in this snow. Survival instinct wars with learned fear. Trust might mean another betrayal. Refusal means certain death. Before she can choose, he moves. He is impossibly large. Shoulders like a cliff face, hands that could span her entire ribcage, arms that lift her as though she weighs nothing at all, cradling her against a chest as broad as a door. Pain explodes through her broken bones. The world tilts and spins. Darkness swims at the edges of her vision. She hears herself cry out, sound raw and desperate and beyond her control. "I know. I'm sorry. Stay with me." He pulls his coat, bearskin, enormous, heavy, from his own shoulders and wraps it around her, tucking it close against her body. The fur still carries his warmth. It hits her frozen skin like knives, like fire. She cannot tell if it is agony or relief. "My cabin is 1/2 mile. You don't die today. I won't allow it." The certainty in his voice cuts through her fading consciousness. Not hope, not promise. Simple fact. I won't allow it, as though death itself is a thing he can refuse. Elena's working eye focuses on his face. Norwegian accent thick in his words. Gray eyes that burn with determination. Face weathered by years of harsh weather and harder living. Handsome in the way mountains are handsome. Brutal and honest and entirely themselves. Beard white with snow. Breath misting in the frozen air. He turns into the blizzard. Wind screams around them. He does not flinch. His body becomes a wall between her and the storm, shielding her from the worst of it. Each step deliberate. Certain. He knows this wilderness, knows where he is going even blind in white. Elena's consciousness begins to fade again. The pain recedes. The cold recedes. Everything recedes except one thought, clear and sharp and terrifying. Too big to fight, must trust or die. Then another thought, smaller, more desperate. Please don't let this be another betrayal. Please, not again. Her eye closes. The darkness pulls her down. She does not know if she is dying or simply surrendering to unconsciousness. She does not know if this man carries her toward salvation or toward some new horror Thomas never imagined. She only knows she has no choice left. The last thing she feels is the steady rhythm of his stride, the strength of his arms, the warmth of his coat beginning, just beginning, to seep into her frozen skin. The last thing she hears is his voice, low and steady, speaking words she cannot quite grasp as the white silence swallows her whole. Warmth. Elena wakes to warmth so overwhelming it disorients her completely. For long moments she cannot remember where she is, how she arrived, whether she is alive or dreaming or dead, and granted some mercy in whatever comes after. Heat wraps around her body like water, sinking into skin and muscle and bone. A stone fireplace roars across the room, flames leaping and crackling, the orange light dancing across rough log walls that glow golden in the fire's embrace. She lies in a narrow bed. Furs cover her, thick pelts that smell of earth and animal and smoke. Wool blankets beneath the furs, scratchy but warm. She is no longer wearing the wedding dress. The realization comes slowly, then all at once. She wears a man's shirt instead, flannel soft with age, enormous on her frame. The sleeves extend past her hands, the hem falls to her thighs. Panic spikes sharp and sudden. Undressed while unconscious. Strange man. Alone. Helpless. "You're awake." His voice comes from across the room. Elena's head turns too quickly. Pain shoots through her neck. She bites back a sound. Magnus Thorvald sits in a single wooden chair beside the fire, whittling. Small curls of wood fall to the floor at his feet. He does not stand. Does not approach. Simply watches her with those gray eyes, steady and assessing, but somehow not threatening. "Had to get you out of wet clothes," he says, voice matter of fact. Hypothermia. You kept the shirt, and I covered you immediately, nothing improper. Even seated, he is massive. Elena's working eye, the other still swollen, mostly shut, takes him in properly for the first time. He has to be 6'5" at minimum, perhaps taller. Shoulders strain against his wool shirt. His hands dwarf the small knife and the piece of wood he shapes, yet his movements are precise, controlled, almost delicate. Face weathered by years of harsh living. Late 30s, beard trimmed short, darker blonde where it is not white with frost. Those gray eyes watch her without blinking, without judgment. Simply observing as though she is a wounded animal, he must assess for threat or need. Your shoulder was dislocated. He sets down the knife and wood on a small table beside his chair. I set it while you were unconscious. 3 broken ribs. Wrapped them as best I could. Your nose is broken but already starting to heal wrong. Your face needs stitches. I waited for you to wake before touching that. Didn't want to frighten you more than necessary. He pauses, leans forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped between them. I'm Magnus Thorvald. This is my cabin. You're safe here. Elena's throat works. Her mouth is dry as bone. She manages a whisper through lips still swollen and cracked. Why? Why what? His head tilts slightly. Why did I help? She nods. The movement costs her. He considers the question as though it is complex, though his answer comes simple and direct. Because you were dying. Because someone beat you and left you to freeze in the wilderness. Because that's what decent people do. They help when they find someone suffering. His eyes harden, just for a moment, something cold and furious flickering behind them. Who was it? Your husband? Elena flinches. She cannot help it. Her body betrays her before her mind can construct a lie or evasion. Magnus's jaw sets. She hears his teeth grind together. The muscle in his cheek jumps. But his voice remains level, controlled when he speaks again. He's not here, can't reach you here, no one knows this place exists. He stands slowly, deliberately as though afraid sudden movement might startle her. Crosses to a small table against the wall. Returns with a tin cup. Steam rises from it. Water. Warm. Not hot. Small sips. He extends the cup. Elena lifts her hands to take it. They shake violently. She cannot control the trembling. The cup wobbles. Water sloshes. Magnus wraps his enormous hand around hers, steadying them both until she has a firm grip. Then he releases her, steps back, gives her space. The water touches her cracked lips. Stings, then soothes. Tastes clean and pure and like life itself pouring back into her body. She sips. Once, twice, swallows carefully, her throat protests but accepts. Magnus watches, nods once, satisfied. Rest now. He returns to his chair by the fire, picks up knife and wood, resumes his work. Tomorrow we'll stitch your face properly, make broth for you to eat. You need sleep more than anything else. Your body has work to do. He glances up. You're safe, Elena. I found your marriage paper in your dress pocket. That's how I know your name. Elena's fingers tighten on the cup. Her name in his mouth sounds different than it did in Thomas's. No ownership, no mockery. Simply acknowledgement. She exists. She has a name. She is a person to be addressed, not an object to be discarded. Sleep, he says again, quietly. I'll keep watch. For the first time in weeks, perhaps months if she counts the slow unraveling that began the moment Thomas proposed. Elena believes she might survive this, not just physically, not just the immediate crisis of cold and broken bones and starvation, but the deeper wound, the betrayal that cut beneath skin and settled into the marrow of who she is. Sleep pulls at her. The fire crackles. Warmth seeps into bones that have been cold for longer than she can remember. Her eye drifts closed. The last thing she sees before darkness takes her is Magnus in his chair, head bent over his work, orange firelight gilding his profile, his massive frame planted between her and the door like a wall nothing will cross. Guardian? Protector? Maybe. Pale winter sunlight streams through the small window when Elena wakes. The light is thin but real, silver rather than the oppressive gray of yesterday's blizzard. The storm has passed. She lies still for a moment, cataloging sensations. The cabin smells of something cooking. Meat, onions, herbs blending together into a scent so rich her stomach clenches hard and sudden. Hunger. Real hunger. The kind that reaches up from her belly and demands attention. She has not felt this in days, perhaps longer. She is alone in the cabin. The realization brings a flicker of something that might be panic before the door swings open and Magnus enters, arms loaded with split firewood. Snow clings to his boots. He stamps it off on the threshold, efficient and automatic before stepping inside. Good. You're awake. He crosses to the hearth, stacks the wood beside the stone fireplace without approaching the bed. Storm broke before dawn. Clear sky now, though cold enough to freeze spit before it hits the ground. He does not move toward her, does not crowd her space, simply tends to his task, adding a log to the fire, adjusting the pot that hangs over the flames on an iron hook. Made stew, he says, straightening. Simple fare, but your stomach needs gentle food after what you've been through. Cold and trauma, body can't handle rich meals yet. Elena sits up slowly, testing her body with careful movements. Everything hurts. But the pain feels different than yesterday, healing pain rather than dying pain. Her ribs are bound tight with strips of cloth wrapped around her torso. Her left shoulder aches, but the wrongness is gone. The joint back where it belongs. Her face throbs with a dull, persistent pain, but the swelling has receded enough that she can see through both eyes now, though the left remains partially shut. Magnus ladles stew into a wooden bowl, brings it to her with a spoon carved from pale wood, sets both on the small table beside the bed, steps back immediately, maintaining that careful distance he has established, as though she is a wounded animal that might startle and hurt herself fleeing. Eat slow, he says. Too fast, and you'll lose it all. Your stomach has been empty too long. Elena lifts the spoon with stiff fingers. Her hands shake. The spoon wobbles. She steadies it with effort, brings it to her lips. The stew is venison and root vegetables, carrots, onions, potatoes, savory and rich despite his claim of simplicity. The first bite hits her tongue and something inside her chest cracks open. Tears sting her eyes. When did she last eat? 2 days before the wedding? 3? She cannot remember. Time became strange in those final days with Thomas, hours stretching and compressing until she lost track of what was real. She forces herself to eat slowly, each bite deliberate, swallowing carefully. Magnus moves to the fire, tends it with his back to her, giving her privacy in this small act of survival. While you slept, I stitched your eyebrow and cheek, he says without turning. 4 stitches total, you didn't wake. Your body needed rest more than anything else. He pauses, adds another log. Sparks rise and dance. I also burned your wedding dress. Figured you wouldn't want it. Elena freezes, spoon halfway to her mouth. The dress, her mother's lace, the silk her parents saved for, but also the symbol of Thomas's betrayal, the costume she wore while they smiled and planned her murder. Relief floods through her so powerfully her hands begin to shake again. She sets the spoon down carefully before she drops it. Thank you, she whispers. Magnus nods once, still not looking at her. There's woman's clothes in that trunk? He gestures to a wooden chest against the far wall. Belong to my sister? You're similar size, I think. You're welcome to them. All of them. Sister. Past tense. A question forms in Elena's mind, but exhaustion presses down on her and she does not have strength to ask. Later, perhaps, or never. She does not know if she has the right to his grief when she is still drowning in her own. She eats slowly. Magnus retrieves sewing from a basket near his chair, needle and thread and what appears to be his own shirt, torn at the shoulder seam. He sits, bends his head to the work, hands surprisingly deft for their size. The cabin settles into silence. Not the oppressive silence of loneliness or threat. Just quiet. The fire crackling. The wind outside gentle now, no longer screaming. Somewhere beyond the walls, mountain chickadees call to one another, their voices bright and alive. Elena finishes half the stew before her stomach signals fullness. She sets the bowl aside. It leans back against the furs and pillows. For the first time in months, maybe longer, maybe since Thomas began his courtship, she does not feel watched by a predator. She simply feels seen by another person. The difference is startling, profound. Maybe, she thinks carefully, testing the thought like a tongue testing a sore tooth, maybe this will be okay. Just for now. Just until she is strong enough to decide what comes next. 5 days have passed since Magnus carried Elena from the snow. She moves carefully but independently now, testing the limits of her healing body with cautious steps around the small cabin. Her ribs no longer scream with every breath, though they ache with a persistent throb that reminds her they are knitting back together. The bruises on her face have shifted from violent purple to sickly yellow-green, the colors of decay and renewal mixing on her skin. She wears his sister's clothes, a wool dress the color of pine bark, practical and warm, with sleeves that reach her wrists and a hem that brushes the tops of sturdy leather boots. The dress fits well enough. They must have been similar in build, Elena and this sister, whose name she does not yet know. She sits by the fire now, mending Magnus's spare shirt where the shoulder seam has torn. The needle moves through fabric with small, precise stitches. Work her mother taught her. Work her hands remember even when her mind wanders. Across the room, Magnus sits at the rough wooden table, sharpening knives with steady rhythmic strokes of whetstone against steel. The sound fills the cabin. Metal singing. Fire crackling. Wind gentle outside. The question has lived in Elena's throat for days. She has swallowed it repeatedly, unsure if she has earned the right to ask, unsure if she wants to know the answer. But the silence between them has grown comfortable enough that she risks breaking it. "You mentioned your sister," she says quietly, eyes on her stitching. Past tense. Magnus's hands go still on the whetstone. The singing stops. Silence stretches long enough that Elena thinks perhaps he will not answer. Perhaps she has overstepped. Perhaps she should apologize and retreat. Then he speaks. "Ingrid." The name comes soft. 8 years ago. He resumes sharpening, but his voice has gone distant, traveling backward through time to a place he does not want to revisit but cannot seem to leave. She married a merchant's son in Duluth. Seemed like a good match. He had prospects, education, came from respectable family. We were happy for her. The knife edge catches light as he turns it. Then the bruises appeared. Small ones at first, fingerprints on her arm she tried to hide under long sleeves, a split lip she blamed on biting it while eating. Broken arm she claimed came from slipping on ice. His jaw works, muscle jumping beneath beard. Black eye from walking into a door in the dark. Always explanations, always accidents. Elena's throat tightens. She knows this pattern, knows it in her bones. "I knew," Magnus continues. "I confronted her. She defended him, said she loved him, said he didn't mean it, said she provoked him, that she should have known better, that he was under stress from business troubles. His voice goes flat, emotionless, as though feeling would destroy him. All the things women say when they've learned that speaking truth is more dangerous than living lies. He sets down the knife, picks up another. One night he beat her so badly she died before the doctor could arrive. Neighbors finally called the marshal after hearing her screaming for over an hour. I testified at the trial, described every injury I'd seen over the years, the pattern of violence that anyone with eyes could recognize. The whetstone scrapes. Once, twice, 3 times. His family had money, connections. Judge ruled it accidental death during marital dispute. Her husband walked free. Walked out of that courtroom, smiling like he'd won a prize. Magnus's knuckles have gone white around the knife handle. I tried to kill him. Right there. 5 men dragged me off before I could reach him. Silence settles heavy and thick. Elena sets down her mending. Her hands shake. I left civilization that day, Magnus says. Built this cabin where no law or money reaches, where monsters disguised as husbands can't hide behind judges and call it justice. He finally looks at her, gray eyes burning with something between grief and fury. I couldn't save Ingrid. Found out too late, and justice meant nothing. But I found you in time. That has to mean something. Elena's voice cracks when she speaks. Thomas courted me for 3 months. The words spill out like water from a broken dam. He was kind, attentive. He brought me flowers. Not expensive ones, just wild flowers, he said, reminded him of me. He listened when I talked about my parents, about missing Russia, about feeling alone. He proposed with my mother's ring that he'd secretly bought from a pawn shop. How did he even know it existed? How did he know I'd pawned it to pay for my father's funeral? She stands, unable to sit still with the truth clawing its way up her throat. I thought he loved me. I thought I was lucky. Immigrant woman, alone, not young anymore, not wealthy or beautiful, and someone wanted me anyway. I thought I'd finally found family again. The words taste bitter. Wedding night, his mother came to our room, explained everything while Thomas held me down. They'd researched me, hired an investigator. Immigrant, alone, small inheritance, $800 and a house. They planned it all. Marry me, kill me, make it look like an accident. Thomas would inherit everything as my husband. Magnus's hands fist on the table. Where are they now? Silver Ridge, I suppose. 3 days' ride from here. Believing I'm dead and frozen somewhere in the wilderness. Her laugh comes out harsh and jagged. Maybe they've already started selling my parents' house. Maybe Constance is spending my money on new dresses. Then they'll be surprised when you return with testimony and witnesses. Magnus stands, chair scraping against floor. His eyes burn with cold fury. Men like that count on silence, on victims dying or being too afraid to speak. You're alive, Elena. That changes everything. She meets his gaze. Her heart pounds. You believe me? Completely. Without question. You don't think I might have provoked him or exaggerated or... I believe you because I saw what they did to you. He crosses the room, kneels before her so they are eye level, so she does not have to look up at his size and strength. I believe you because I know how this story goes. I've lived it. And I believe you because believing victims is what decent people do, something the world seems to have forgotten. Elena does not flinch from his proximity. For the first time since he found her, she does not tense when he comes close. His belief feels like solid ground beneath her feet after months of drowning. Thank you, she whispers. Tears burn behind her eyes. For finding me. For believing me. Her voice breaks. For not being like them. Magnus's expression softens into something almost gentle. "Never," he says quietly. "Never." Elena kneads bread dough at the cabin's small table, her hands working the elastic mass with a rhythm that has become almost meditative. Flour dusts her fingers. The dough smells of yeast and promise. Outside, she can hear the steady thunk, thunk, thunk of Magnus's axe splitting wood for the evening fire. She hums quietly, a song her mother used to sing while baking, Russian words she has not thought of in years. It is the first time she has made music since the rescue. The first time something like contentment has touched her damaged heart. Then, dogs barking, distant, growing closer, hunting dogs. Her hands freeze in the dough. Blood drains from her face so quickly the room tilts. Her heart slams against her ribs. That sound. She knows that sound. Thomas's dogs. The ones he took hunting. The ones that tracked deer and rabbits and now apparently wives. Magnus appears in the doorway, axe in hand. Expression grim as winter. Get in the root cellar. Now. What riders? 3 men. Coming fast with dogs. His gray eyes lock onto hers. No softness now. Only command. "Cellar. Don't come out until I say." Elena runs. Her healing ribs protest, but she ignores them. The trapdoor in the corner lifts with effort, heavy wood hiding the ladder that descends into darkness. The root cellar smells of earth and onions and potatoes and cold stone. A tomb. She hesitates at the edge. Magnus appears beside her, presses a loaded pistol into her shaking hands. The metal is cold and heavy. "If anyone but me opens that door, you shoot. Center mass. Don't hesitate, understand?" She nods. Cannot speak. Descends the ladder into the dark. Above her, Magnus closes the door. Darkness swallows her whole. She hears him drag the heavy rug across the trapdoor, concealing it. His boots move across the floor above, calm, deliberate, unhurried. The front door opens. Elena crouches in the darkness. Her heart hammers so hard it hurts. She grips the pistol with both hands, tries to remember how Magnus showed her to hold it. Finger off the trigger until ready to fire. Breathe. Stay silent. Above her, voices. "You there, mountain man?" Male voice, aggressive, entitled. "Thomas." Her stomach lurches. Bile rises in her throat. "You seen a woman? My wife went missing in a blizzard 2 weeks back. Tracks led this direction before the snow covered them." Magnus's voice comes carefully neutral. "You're on private land. Turn around and leave." "We got the right to search for her." Thomas, louder now, fury creeping into his tone. "She's my wife, my property. Law gives me the right." "You got no rights here." Magnus's voice remains level, unmoved. "This is my mountain. No woman here. Just me and my traps. Now leave before I make you leave." A different voice, rough, unfamiliar. "We tracked blood in the snow, week-old, before the storm hit. Led toward this valley, she came this way, we know it." Maybe she did. Magnus sounds almost bored. Maybe she died and wolves took her. Mountains full of graves, but you won't find her bothering me. Leave. Final warning. "Let us search your cabin." Thomas, desperate edge creeping into his voice now. Footsteps on the wooden porch. "If she's here, she's coming with us, she's mine." The sound of a rifle cocking cuts through the air. Sharp. Final. "Step off my porch," Magnus says, voice dropping into something cold and dangerous. "Or the next sound is this rifle firing. Your choice. Make it quick." Elena crouches in the cellar, tears streaming down her face. Thomas came looking. Not from grief. Not from love. From fear. She survived. She is a liability now. A witness to attempted murder. He needs her dead or silenced, preferably dead. Silence stretches above, tense, violent. Then Thomas's voice, fury barely controlled, shaking with rage and something that might be fear. If she's alive, she's my wife, my property. Law says so. Law says a lot of things. Magnus's voice could cut stone. Don't mean they're right. You're still on my porch. I'm counting to 3. 1. Footsteps retreat. Scrambling. Thomas. This ain't over, mountain man. I got rights. I'll come back with the marshal, with proper authority. Bring whoever you want. Answer will be the same. 2. Sounds of horses moving, dogs barking, men mounting up, the thunder of hooves retreating. Then, silence. Long and heavy. Finally, the trapdoor lifts. Lantern light spills down. Magnus's face appears, shadowed and fierce. They're gone. Elena climbs the ladder. Her legs shake so badly she nearly falls. Magnus catches her arm, steadies her, guides her to the chair by the fire. She collapses into it. Her whole body trembles. Words try to form, but her throat has closed. He came, she finally manages. He came looking. He wants to... I know. Magnus sets the rifle against the wall, kneels before her, taking her shaking hands in his steady ones. He's afraid. You're alive, which means his plan failed. Dead wife can't testify. Living wife destroys him. I'm not safe. The words tumble out, panic rising. Even here, he'll come back, with more men, with the marshal, with... Then we leave, Magnus says simply. Or we go to the authorities first, your way, your choice. But, Elena, he's hear me clearly. I won't let him take you, not while I breathe, never again. She looks into his gray eyes, sees absolute truth there. No hesitation, no doubt. A warrior lives beneath this isolated man, someone who will stand between her and violence without flinching. He called me his property, she whispers. You're nobody's property. Magnus's jaw sets. You're a person. You have value beyond what anyone can own or inherit or steal. And you deserve justice, real justice, not the kind my sister got. Something inside Elena's chest loosens. She nods. Once. Then again, more certain. Then we go to them. Before they come to us. We go to Helena. To the territorial marshal. Magnus's expression shifts into something almost like pride. Then we leave at dawn. Pack light. Ride fast. And we don't stop until you're safe. And Thomas Garrett is behind bars where he belongs. That night, Elena cannot sleep. She sits by the fire wrapped in blankets while Magnus occupies his chair, whittling a piece of pine. The knife moves steadily, curls of wood falling to the floor like snow. Neither has spoken in over an hour. The silence is comfortable but heavy with unspoken decisions pressing down on both of them. Finally, Elena breaks it. I can't hide forever. Magnus looks up. Waits. Does not fill the space with reassurances or arguments. Simply listens. If I stay hidden, I'm still his victim. Her hands clench in the blanket. Still letting him control my life through fear. He'll keep looking. And even if he eventually stops, if he decides I'm truly dead and gives up, I'll always be running. Always looking over my shoulder. That's no life. That's just a different kind of death. She stares into the fire. Flames dance and shift. I want him to face what he did. I want justice, real justice, not the kind your sister got. Not the kind that lets rich men walk free while their victims stay silent in graves. Magnus sets down his knife and wood. It's dangerous. Territorial law often sides with husbands in disputes. You have no witnesses to the beating except yourself. His family has money for lawyers who will tear your testimony apart, call you hysterical or vengeful. He pauses. Could go badly. Could go very badly. It could. Elena meets his eyes across the firelight. But hiding here, living in fear forever, That's a guarantee of no life at all. I'd rather risk fighting and lose than guarantee my own surrender. Something shifts in Magnus's expression. A slow smile crosses his weathered face. The first real smile she has seen from him. It transforms him completely, erasing years of severity, revealing the handsome man beneath the isolation and grief. Then we leave at dawn. There's a territorial marshal in Helena, 3 days' ride east. Name's Bridger. Fair man. He successfully prosecuted a wife-beater 2 years back. Sent him to territorial prison despite the man's family money. We'll take your testimony to him. They'll say I'm lying. Elena's voice wavers slightly. That I ran away from my marriage and invented this story to avoid going back. That I'm a hysterical woman who... They can try. Magnus leans forward, elbows on his knees. But doctors can examine your injuries. Broken bones leave evidence. Fracture patterns, healing timelines. I'll testify to the exact condition I found you in. And if Thomas's mother already tried selling your house, which she likely has if she thinks you're dead... His smile goes sharp and cold. That's fraud. Attempting to sell property of a person not legally proven deceased. Leaves a paper trail, creates evidence. Elena's heart pounds, but the rhythm feels different than before. Not the frantic terror of being hunted. Something else. Purpose, perhaps. Direction. You would testify? Risk getting involved in legal proceedings? Risk Thomas or his family coming after you? Elena. Magnus's voice gentles. I'm already involved. I found you dying in the snow. Nursed you back to health. Just ran your husband off my land with a loaded rifle. I'm a witness whether either of us planned it or not. He pauses. Besides, I want to see him face justice. For you, for Ingrid, for every woman these men destroy while the world looks away. She nods, once, then again, more certain. Then we go at dawn. They pack through the remaining hours of darkness. Dried venison wrapped in cloth, journey cakes made from oats and honey, water skins filled from the cold stream, fur-lined coats and extra blankets for sleeping rough if necessary. Magnus loads 2 rifles with practiced efficiency, then calls Elena over to teach her the basics. Hold it here against your shoulder. He positions her hands. Sight down the barrel. Breathe out slowly when you pull the trigger. And if we're somehow separated and Thomas finds you, don't hesitate. Shoot center mass, the largest target. Don't try for fancy shots. Elena takes the rifle, feels its weight, tests the balance. I'm not certain I could kill him. Then shoot to wound, leg, shoulder, anywhere that stops him. Magnus's expression is grave. But protect yourself first. Your survival matters more than his. Remember that. Dawn comes cold and achingly clear. They load the horses, Magnus's massive gray draft animal that carried them both from the snow, and a smaller chestnut mare he's kept for lighter work. Elena stands on the porch one last time, looking back at the cabin. This place saved her life. This place taught her that not all men are monsters, that kindness still exists in the world, that trust, carefully given, can be a foundation rather than a trap. Ready? Magnus asks, already mounted. Elena breathes deep. Cold air fills her lungs. She climbs onto the mare, settling into the saddle with only slight discomfort from her healing ribs. Ready. They ride east as the sun rises behind them, casting their shadows long across the snow. Toward Helena, toward territorial law and the hope of justice. Toward the reckoning that Thomas Garrett does not yet know is coming, but will discover soon enough. That the wife he tried to bury has risen from her grave and she is bringing a witness with her. The gunshot cracks through the forest like thunder splitting the world in half. Magnus's horse screams, rears. Hooves flail against empty air. Magnus fights for control, but the animal's terror is absolute. He's thrown, hard. His body hits the frozen ground with a sound Elena will hear in nightmares for the rest of her life, the sickening thud of bone meeting earth. He doesn't move. Magnus! Elena leaps from her mare before thought catches up with action. She hits the ground, running. 4 men emerge from the tree line like wolves who've been waiting, patient and hungry. Thomas stands in the center, grinning, with a satisfaction that turns her stomach. 3 hired guns flank him, rough men with empty eyes who do what they're paid to do and ask no questions. Told you I'd find you, wife. Thomas's smile is poisonous, triumphant. You and your mountain man. Thought you'd run to the marshal? We've been tracking you since you left his cabin. You're not as clever as you think. Elena drops to her knees beside Magnus. Blood spreads dark across his shoulder, staining the snow beneath him. Shot, but not killed. The bullet caught him high on the left side. But the fall, his head struck a rock or root, something hard enough to steal consciousness. She presses both hands to the wound. Her fingers slip in hot blood. She's shaking so hard she can barely think straight. Thomas dismounts, walks toward them with the casual confidence of a man who believes he's already won. He reaches down, grabs Elena's hair, yanks her upright. Pain explodes across her scalp. She screams. "You're my wife," Thomas says, each word deliberate. "My property. Law says so. And you're coming home to die proper this time. No more chances, no more mistakes." "Let me help him." Elena claws at Thomas's hand wrapped in her hair. "He's bleeding. He'll die." "Let him bleed." Thomas drags her toward his horse. Mountain Man should have minded his business. Should have let you freeze like we planned. Elena fights, kicks backward at his shins, scratches at his face, bites down hard on the hand, holding her hair until she tastes blood. Thomas roars, releases her long enough to backhand her across the face. Her old injuries scream. The world tilts. Stars burst behind her eyes. "Still got fight?" Thomas grabs her again. "I'll beat that out of you. Should have done it more thoroughly the first time." Elena's mind fractures. This is happening again. Magnus lying in blood because he protected her, just like Samuel bled out in that barn after trying to shield her from Thomas's fists. Everyone she touches dies. Everyone who helps her pays in blood. Maybe Thomas is right. Maybe she's cursed. Maybe death follows her like a shadow and she should stop fighting, stop dragging good people into her nightmare, stop. No. The word rips from her throat. Raw. Absolute. Thomas pauses, surprised. No. Louder this time. Elena stops fighting to escape, stops trying to twist away. She plants her feet, squares her shoulders, looks Thomas dead in the eyes with something she hasn't felt in months, burning hot in her chest. "I am not your wife. That marriage was fraud. You beat me and left me to die in the snow, and I'm done being afraid of you." Thomas's fist draws back. "Stupid girl!" Elena ducks under the punch, rams her shoulder into his stomach with all her weight behind it. He staggers backward, air whooshing from his lungs. She runs, not away from Magnus, not into the forest to hide. She runs toward her mare where the rifle is tied to the saddle. Thomas catches her ankle, drags her down. She hits the snow hard, kicks backward with her free foot, connects with his face, feels his nose crunch beneath her boot heel. He roars, releases her. She scrambles forward on hands and knees, finds her feet, reaches the mare. Her fingers close around the rifle. She turns, Thomas lunges, Elena raises the rifle. Finger finds the trigger. The world narrows to this moment. The weight of the weapon in her hands, Thomas's face twisted with rage, the choice hanging in the air like smoke. Can she do it? Can she end him? Behind Thomas, Magnus stirs, groans. His hand moves in the snow, still alive, still fighting even unconscious, his body refusing to surrender. Elena's hand steady. "Get away from him! Get away from me! Or I swear to God I will shoot you!" Thomas sees something in her eyes that makes him stop. His hands rise slowly. "You won't shoot? You're weak. You're nothing. You're—" Elena fires. The bullet kicks up snow at Thomas's feet. The sound echoes through the forest. Birds explode from nearby trees. Thomas jumps backward, eyes wide. "Next one goes in your chest." Elena's voice doesn't shake. "Test me." Elena keeps the rifle trained on Thomas. Her arms burn with the effort. Doesn't matter. She doesn't lower the weapon. Behind Thomas, his 3 hired men exchange glances. Uncomfortable shifts in their saddles. The calculation happening in their eyes is visible even from this distance. One speaks, the oldest, with a gray beard and weathered face. "We signed on for tracking, Garrett, not murder. Woman's armed and serious. You said she was helpless." "She is helpless." Thomas's voice goes shrill. She's bluffing. She won't." "Then shoot her yourself." The hired man turns his horse away. "We're done. Ain't hanging for killing a woman defending herself. Not for what you're paying." He kicks his mount into motion. "Not for any amount." The other 2 follow. Hoofbeats fade into the forest. Thomas stands alone in the clearing, his grand plan crumbling around him like snow melting in sunlight. Behind Elena, Magnus drags himself upright. His good arm presses wadded cloth torn from his shirt against the shoulder wound. Blood has soaked through, but the flow is slowing. Blood loss has made him pale as winter sky, but his gray eyes burn fierce and clear. "Elena!" She doesn't turn, doesn't lower the rifle. "I'm not running anymore, Magnus, not from him, not from anyone. I'm done letting fear decide my life." "Good." His voice comes rough with pain, but underneath it she hears something else. Pride. "Because we're 3 miles from Helena. Marshal's office by nightfall if we ride steady." He stands fully, swaying slightly but upright. Walks forward to stand beside her. "And Thomas here is going to walk ahead of us. Aren't you, Garrett?" Thomas looks at the rifle. At Magnus's cold fury. At the empty forest where his hired men disappeared. The reality settles over him, visible as frost. Trapped. "You can't prove anything. It's her word against mine. I'm her husband. Law gives me rights." Elena's smile is knife-edge sharp. "Your hired men just witnessed you drag me by my hair, threaten to kill me, and shoot an unarmed man. That's 3 criminal counts. 4 if we include attempted murder from the blizzard." She steps forward. The rifle doesn't waver. "Start walking, Thomas. Toward Helena. Toward justice, finally." Magnus pulls rope from his saddlebag with his good hand. Binds Thomas's wrists behind his back. Thomas tries to resist. Elena raises the rifle higher. Thomas goes still. The rope tightens. Secure. They ride as the sun begins its descent toward the western mountains. Elena on her chestnut mare, rifle across her lap, eyes never leaving Thomas. Magnus on his gray draft horse, wounded but upright, jaw set against pain. Thomas walks ahead of them, hands bound, stumbling occasionally in the snow, future crumbling with every reluctant step toward the town, where law still means something and money cannot buy silence. Marshal Bridger's office smells of tobacco and old paper. He sits behind a scarred wooden desk, a stern man in his late 50s with a weathered face that has seen too many lies and not enough justice. He listens as Elena speaks, her voice shaking at first like a candle flame in wind, then steadying as she finds her strength. She describes the courtship, the wedding, the beating that followed, being dragged into the wilderness and dumped in snow to freeze. Her hands clasped together in her lap, knuckles white, but her voice does not break. Thomas interrupts constantly. "She's lying. She ran away from her marital duties. Ungrateful immigrant trying to steal—" "Mr. Garrett!" Marshal Bridger's voice cuts sharp. "You'll have your turn. Mrs. Garrett, please continue." Elena does. Describes waking in Magnus's cabin, Thomas hunting her with dogs. He called me his property. Said law gave him rights to... Her voice cracks, then hardens like iron cooling. To kill me if he wanted. To do whatever he pleased because I was his wife. Ridiculous. Thomas's face reddens. She's hysterical. Women invent stories when they don't want to obey their husbands. This is what happens when you let immigrants... Magnus shifts in his chair. Left arm in a sling, dried blood still visible on his shirt. I found her dying in a blizzard. Hypothermic. Beaten unconscious. Broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, face beaten like raw meat. His gray eyes fix on Thomas. That wasn't invented. That was real. I saw it. I treated it. Marshal Bridger raises one hand. Doctor's already outside. Let's get medical evidence. He opens the door, calls for Dr. Walsh. The doctor examines Elena's injuries, still healing, still visible. Broken ribs he palpates carefully through her dress. The shoulder joint he tests for range of motion. The fracture line on her nose, healed slightly crooked. The defensive wounds on her forearms where she tried to block blows. Breaks consistent with repeated trauma from fists or boots, Dr. Walsh says, writing in his notebook. Defensive wounds on arms. Or injuries approximately 2 weeks old. Timeline matches her account precisely. This was deliberate beating, not accident. Pattern suggests intent to cause severe harm. Thomas's face goes from red to white. She provoked me. There's more. Marshal Bridger drops a stack of papers on his desk. The sound echoes like a gavel. Constance Garrett, your mother, filed claim on property belonging to Elena Koslov 3 days after the alleged blizzard incident. Attempted to sell the house before death was legally confirmed. That's fraud, Mr. Garrett. Also discovered something interesting. Elena's parents' death records, marriage certificate, will, all accessed by private investigator named Harrison Doyle. You hired him 6 months before you ever met your wife. Silence fills the office like water rising. Thomas's face drains of all color. Or that's... You can't... You researched her inheritance, Marshal Bridger says, standing slowly. Courted her specifically for money. Planned her murder. That's premeditation, Mr. Garrett. He reaches for the handcuffs on his belt. Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. You're under arrest. No. Thomas lunges for the door. She's lying. You can't believe some immigrant over an American citizen. I have rights. Magnus rises despite his wounded shoulder. Blocks the door. Thomas swings wildly. Magnus catches the fist with his good hand, twists the arm, forces Thomas to his knees. Thomas screams. The deputy appears, clamps iron shackles on Thomas's wrists, drags him toward the cells and back. Thomas's voice rises to a shriek. She's my wife! I have rights! The law says she's mine! Mine! Marshal Bridger watches him disappear. Turns to Elena. Mrs. Garrett, territorial law allows annulment for marriages obtained through fraud or under duress. I'll recommend the judge grant it immediately. You'll need to testify at trial, but based on this evidence... He extends his hand. I believe you, and justice will be served. Elena takes his hand. Tears stream down her face. Thank you. Thank you for listening, for believing me. You shouldn't have to thank me for doing what's right, Marshal Bridger says quietly. But you're welcome. He nods to Magnus. You too, Thorvald. Good man. Get that shoulder properly tended. Outside, the sun breaks through clouds for the first time in days. Elena stands on the wooden boardwalk breathing free air. Magnus beside her, wounded but smiling despite the pain. You did it, he says. We did it. Elena looks at him. I couldn't have survived without you finding me. Couldn't have reached Helena without you standing with me. You could have. Magnus's expression softens. But I'm glad you didn't have to. He pauses. What now? Elena looks down the bustling street. Helena alive with people, horses, wagons, freedom stretching ahead of her like an open road. Now I decide who I want to be. Not who fear made me, not who Thomas tried to break. Who I choose to become. 3 months pass. Spring arrives in Helena. Snow melts into rushing streams. Green shoots push through softening earth. Elena rents a small house on Rodney Street with money reclaimed from her inheritance. The house Thomas tried to steal, now sold and converted to cash that belongs to her alone. She hangs a simple shingle outside. Elena Kozlov, seamstress. But her real work happens quietly behind closed doors. Women with bruises find their way to her threshold. Word spreads in whispers among those who know what it means to hide injuries and invent explanations. Elena listens, believes them without question, helps them find Marshal Bridger, testifies alongside them when they're too afraid to speak alone. 3 more men have been arrested for wife-beating. The pattern changes slowly, like ice melting 1 degree at a time. But it changes. Magnus visits weekly, bringing venison and rabbit pelts to trade. Each visit stretches longer than the last. They talk by her fire, easy companionship settling between them like a well-worn coat. He brings news one evening. Thomas convicted, sentenced to 15 years hard labor in territorial prison. Constance fled Montana, our warrant issued for her arrest. Another evening, Magnus sits longer than usual. Firelight catches in his gray eyes. "My cabin's lonely," he admits quietly. "Got used to another person's presence. Silence feels different now. Heavier." Elena smiles. "I got used to mountain quiet, cities loud. All these voices, wagons, dogs barking at midnight. Could visit." Magnus looks at her directly, hesitant but hopeful. "Stay a while if you wanted. No expectations, just company. Yours if you'd share it." Elena sets down her mending, reaches across the small space between their chairs, touches his hand. "I'd like that, but Magnus, not because I need rescue, not because I'm afraid or helpless or can't survive alone." She meets his eyes. "Because I choose it. Choose you, that's the only reason that matters." His smile could light the darkest winter. "That's all I'd ever want. Your choice. Freely given." She packs a bag. They ride toward the mountains together as spring transforms the world from white to green, toward the cabin where she nearly died and was reborn, where isolation became partnership, where both of them learned the truth that fear had hidden from them for so long. Strength isn't standing alone against the cold. It's choosing to stand with someone. It's trusting another soul to stand with you. Summer evening settles golden over the mountains. Elena and Magnus sit outside the cabin watching sunset paint the peaks crimson and gold, the sky bleeding into darkness with the slow patience of seasons turning. She leans against his left shoulder, the wound healed now, strength fully returned. His arm rests around her waist, natural and right, as though they've been sitting this way for years instead of months. "When you found me in the snow," Elena says quietly, "I'd given up. Thought death was what I deserved for being foolish enough to hope." "You weren't foolish." Magnus's hand tightens on her waist. "You were human. Hope isn't weakness. It's what keeps us alive. Took me years hiding here to learn that." "What changed?" "You." He turns her face toward his with gentle fingers. "Finding you reminded me that isolation isn't strength. It's just fear wearing different clothes. You taught me that standing with someone, choosing to trust despite every risk, that's real courage." Elena kisses him. Gentle, certain. He responds carefully, asking permission with every movement, every touch. When they part, both are smiling. "Marry me," Magnus says. "Real marriage. Choice and truth and partnership. Not property or possession, just us, choosing each other." "Yes." No hesitation. Yes. They had dumped the beaten bride in snow to freeze, left her to die alone in winter's cruelest cold. But she survived, not through isolation, but through choosing to trust when trust seemed impossible. She discovered that survival wasn't enough. Belonging was what made her human. And in choosing to stand beside him, she became something stronger than fear. She became herself. Two people sit together as darkness gathers, hands joined, mountains bearing witness, cabin solid behind them, home found, future chosen, peace earned through courage, through honesty, through the hardest choice of all. To trust again after trust was shattered, to love again after love became weapon, to hope again after hope was used to destroy. The stars emerge one by one. The fire inside crackles warm, and they sit together in the gathering dark, no longer alone, no longer afraid, choosing each moment to remain.